Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and I'm so pleased that you are joining me in today's episode. Recently, Michael and I had a real estate deal start to go sideways, and the anxiety for me started to build. And then we had a tenant start to misbehave, which resulted in more anxiety. Then there was an invoice that got missed, and we got hit with a late payment. And today I'm sitting here doing rent increase notices, and all of this is anxiety inducing to me. And as an overthinker, which is exactly what I am, this anxiety aspect kind of stifles me, quite frankly. I started thinking about this level of anxiety in our business, and I thought, I bet I am not the only one thinking this way. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I do a podcast episode on this? This is the hard part about being a landlord is what do you do when you get to this anxiety inducing point? Because you still have to function. It's like you can stop and crawl in the fetal position. I mean, you can, but that doesn't actually solve the problem. And so today's show is how do I overcome the anxiety about being in business, being a human, being a landlord. I'm going to do this in three parts. What does the anxiety feel like? What are the potential solutions? How to sleuth that out? And then how do you link feeling that anxiety with those solutions? And I'm just going to offer a few options. They work for me sometimes they don't always work for me. Sometimes I have to kind of flip through, and thankfully I have an amazing husband who can see me start to hyperventilate. I mean, that's kind of what happens when I get some anxiety going. But let's go into what anxiety feels like. Sometimes it feels like heavy breathing. Sometimes it's lost sleep. We call it looping, where you just are thinking about that same thing again and again and again, and you can't sleep. You at least not a restful sleep. Sometimes you're up, or maybe your heart is in your throat. You just can't settle down because your energy level is so high. Your heart is in your throat. Now, how about what it feels like when let's see. So how about when you think what anxiety feels like for you? You think about how anxiety feels like for you because I likely didn't, I mean, that's how anxiety hits me, but you're going to go, yeah, Jen, but I feel anxiety like this or this, I know this about myself. So think about how anxiety feels for you. And maybe you've never even thought about it, right? Maybe you just kind of go, okay, well, whatever, I have to muscle through that. Sometimes that can be gender specific. Guys seem to power through it more than girls. However, I've also seen guys fall apart in very stressful situations. So it just depends. But think about that. Answer that question for yourself. What does anxiety feel like for you? For me, I overcome heavy breathing by sitting calmly. I'll turn all my ringers off. In fact, anybody who knows me, I have a US phone and a Canadian phone. Both of the ringers are off. I don't monitor my phones. I try to just let them be. So I always tell people if you're trying to get a hold of me, call Michael because I'm not answering my phones. But I turn the ringer off my phone and I will sit, and honestly, my energy level's raised. My heart will be up in my throat. And I try just to calm down. And we've got several solutions for this, especially if I am looping. If I have a looping where I can't, a looping problem where I can't sleep, I just go again and again. I'm just chewing on whatever this problem or whatever this encounter is, or I'm worrying about something that hasn't even happened. I'll fight it, but what I end up doing is I get up and either on paper or on a whiteboard, I'll do a brain dump. Now, you may ask what a brain dump is, and basically, a brain dump is literally you write out everything that you're thinking. Everything, just write it out. This happened, tenant this, rent increase this, bill this, whatever. It's like every scenario, everything that might happen, you write until there's nothing left to write. It's written vomit on your paper, on your whiteboard, and then you exhale and you go back to bed because everything that was in your head and you're chewing about on your head is now living on that piece of paper or on the whiteboard, right? And so you leave the thing that you were looping about on the board, right? That's what do. You let it live there, and then when you wake up, I actually what I'll end up doing is I'll take a photo of the board because that's sort of this doesn't happen to me often, but when it does, if I don't do something about it, I can't like I can't function the next day because I didn't get any rest. So you take a photo of the board, and then rationally, what will end up happening is you've already sort of figured it out in your head, and you're like, oh, all I need to do is call this person, or I needed to write a letter, or whatever it is. Sometimes, like anxiety with rent increase notices, there's nothing about it. I just have to go, you know what? The city or county doesn't get anxiety over giving me a property tax notice increase, or the bank doesn't get anxiety knowing that they're going to increase my mortgage. I mean, some of this is just part of business that you kind of have to stomach and get over. There's nothing to do, but you still have to get through it, right? Now, thankfully, I've got a great partner who, when he sees me over thinking, I've got anxiety, or he just knows something's wrong, he'll just hug me. He'll give me a big hug and hold it for 60 seconds, and he'll just let me know that no matter what things are happening, he says it's going to turn out amazing. It's going to be okay. And then he'll typically say, "How can I help you? What is it that you need to do?" In the past, he's gone and said, "Well, you need to get that under control." And I look at him and go, "You know what? That's not actually helpful." It's not actually helpful, especially when I'm trying to be a good landlord or a good housing provider. You've got to actually sometimes do hard stuff, right? So, um, let's see what else. Now, there's a couple other philosophies. When you've got anxiety going on, the thing that you've got anxiety about can't be dealt with until you sort of deal with your anxiety. You've got to do something with it. And Mike and I are big fans of Dan Martell. So if you have not watched Dan Martell on YouTube, he's all over social media. Most of the time he's on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook. But Dan Martell recently wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. I talk about it often on the show. But he mentioned that if you have high anxiety, especially if you're an overthinker, which I am, he says, tame your mind by exhausting your body. Pretty cool. He says, so if you've got anxiety, if you've got this, your heart in your throat, you're breathing, go for a run, hit the gym, exhaust your body. And then naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to exhaust your body. You're probably going to get all sweaty, and then you're going to go take a shower. Again, very therapeutic and calm, resetting. Again, you can then think rationally, because when you're in that anxious state, you can't think, right? And so that's one thing that Dan Martell had said. Now, here's another option. This one's from Tony Robbins, where Tony says, change your energy, change your environment, change your state. Change your state, meaning change your energy, change how you're operating, not like change your physical location, not change your state or province. That's not what he means. But we would do this when Mike and I were building Paradise Ridge condos in South Kihei in Maui. We would get to the point where we'd be anxious. We were over it. We were just done with whatever was going on. And I'd look at Mike and I'd go, I quit. I would quit 20 times before breakfast. I would say, please fire me. And he would say, no, you can quit, but you can't leave, right? Like that was always the running joke. You can quit, but you can't leave. And what he said too is, why don't you just go for coffee? Just get in your car and just go for a coffee. Just take 20 minutes, go get a coffee, regroup, and sometimes that works. So change your energy, change your environment, and change your state. And so the other thing you can do, and this is what, if you've never been to a Tony Robbins event, like Unleash the Power Within, Date with Destiny, Business Mastery, any of those, he does it with music and lights, but mostly music. And so if you want to change your state, you want to change the energy, you can change your environment, but you change your state is put on some great music that moves you, right? For me, Eminem, Lose Yourself. My boating song is Watermelon Sugar. And so anytime I start a boating playlist, Watermelon Sugar is always the lead-off song. Pretty much anything from Adele, Titanium, Unstoppable, Applause by Lady Gaga, Pitbull, Fireball, like all those, it's like, yes! And anything that makes you move. And then I put my arms up like I've already won, like, yes, welcome in the abundance. What am I anxious about, right? What am I anxious? So in the other power stance you can do, this is from Jim Quick. Jim Quick does all kinds of trick your brain. His book is called Limitless, and you can stand in the Wonder Woman pose with your feet apart, you're standing feet apart, hands on your hips, and listening to this good music. Now, if that does not make you feel like a badass, I don't know what, but I mean, I'm already feeling better just talking about doing this stuff. But this is the kind of things where you change your state, you change your energy, change your environment. And these are all different ways to bust through anxiety. So I love it. Even when I go for walks, I'll work out and then I'll go for walks in the morning. Even without anxiety, I will walk with my arms up like, this is incredible. I'm walking up and down the streets of Maui going, seriously, this is my life. I'm recording this episode on my boat. Seriously, this is my life. This is incredible that I get to teach other people about how I get through anxiety. I'm hoping this is going to help you guys. But regardless of all of this, you're so blessed. Just remember that. Remember how blessed you are. And these are little tricks that I try all the time when I have anxiety. This is tough. Business is tough. Being a landlord is tough. If you think that I'm super easy at doing all this and I'm a rock star at doing all this, if you think that that doesn't come with some anxiety, you're wrong. It does. So whether or not the music changes your state, the your physical stance changes your state, but you work out, any of this stuff, I no longer have anxious thoughts or breath, right? And so it sort of gets you out of that anxious state, but then you have to still deal with whatever it was that was causing the anxiety. You still have to get through that. So let's talk about that next. So let's see. Whatever anxiety feels like for you, you likely feel discomfort. You might feel vulnerable. However you feel, it's absolutely okay to feel that way. But the question is, how do you regroup and keep going? What are all the potential solutions? So let's talk about that for a second, because you really can do two things. You can either act or you don't have to act. It's either one or the other, because remember, we're talking about you as an individual, as a human, overcoming anxiety and then rationally dealing with something that you have to deal with, or do you? Okay, so let's talk about acting or don't acting. So if you're going to act as a landlord and rationally, so you can write that warning letter to the mischievous tenant, you can post your rent increase notices, right? Or you can at least stuff the envelopes and get them ready to post. You can pay the invoice. How about talking to one of your advisors, like our real estate deal that was about to go sideways? Why was it going sideways? I can make a phone call to any number of my advisors, including my lawyer, realtor, contractor, insurer, lender, sponsor, partner, any of these people. That's part of the action of going, this is what seems to be happening and it's giving me anxiety. How can we get through this? What about canceling the real estate deal or deciding to have that conversation about canceling the real estate deal? Maybe that's anxiety inducing. That can. What if you have to fire somebody? That's all part of the acting part, right? It may not be less anxiety inducing, but at least it is part of an action. Now let's talk about not acting. What if you don't do something? Like you just stop, right? The mischief of the tenant might continue. The invoices continue to not get paid. You might lose respect or reliability if you don't pay your invoices. People might be calling going, hey, how come you're not paying your bills? You paid your bills for decades and now you're not paying them. What's up? What if you do lose the real estate deal or if they have to foreclose? What if you don't support your team, right? Like these are all things that you are not acting, but sometimes not acting is a good thing. And I'll explain more in a minute, but you have to do something, whether it's make a phone call, write a letter, write an email, go work out. You have to do something, right? Time is going to march on. But the real question is, how do you link whatever it is that's anxiety inducing to these solutions? So there's a couple things, because something has to happen to solve this anxiety, right? So either I do it, someone else does it, or I question going, does this really have to be done at all? So let's go through each one of these. So whatever it is that's anxiety inducing, whether it's a warning letter, a phone call, an awkward conversation I have to have with someone, I change my state. I think and I speak in facts. I don't go on hearsay. I don't go on what somebody might have said or what almost happened or could have happened. I do the thing that's anxiety inducing and I just do it based on facts, right? I write that warning letter. I post that rent increase notice, even though I don't want to do it. That's part of the business, right? So I do the thing. The other option is somebody else does the thing, like somebody else writes a warning letter or AI writes a warning letter. And then maybe somebody else will post it for you or mail it for you, right? That can help. And that way you're not in it at all. They take it all. Because the thing is, the other person may not care. They go, oh, this person needs a warning letter. Fine, just give it to me and I'll throw it in the mail. Big deal, no big deal. Or maybe it's something like the rent increase notices that I just created them. Now I have to print them, sign them, and post them. Well, the only thing that I physically have to do is sign them. That's it. So maybe somebody else needs to go and post them. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be me. Um, the other option is, I know this is typically for self-managing landlords, but I've got several property managers on this show as well. Spencer Sutton from Evernest was on episode 162. If I'm considering hiring a property manager, maybe this property manager, when they come into the picture, or maybe I already have a property manager on at least one of my properties, you guys go deal with this. How do you deal with warning letters? How do you deal with rent increase notices or whatever is anxiety inducing? Somebody else can take the emotional brunt and therefore reduce your anxiety, right? The other thing that I can do is I always look ahead and I go, what am I going to do at the end of this? Right? Part of the anxiety for, like, for example, the rent increase notices for me is going, I might lose a tenant out of this. This might result in turning a unit. And then I go, you know what? All these rent increase notices are for between $20 and $40 a month for the next year. This is probably not going to result in a move. And if it does, it's not because of me, it's because of them. And I get that, and I'll support them. And even if I get a phone call from someone who's angry about it, I have to say, you know what? The city and the insurance companies and whomever, the bank, they're unapologetically increasing on me. I don't have a choice in my business. I have to keep increasing rents yearly. I must do this. And it's tough, but you have to do it. So, but somebody else doing this anxiety inducing thing, I always look to the end and I go, yeah, it might result in a turn. It might result in an eviction, but am I doing the best according to the tenancy laws? Am I doing the best as being a human to another human? The answer is usually yes. I try really hard to make it yes. But linking today to the solutions, the other question is, does that thing have to be done at all? Does it have to be done at all? One of the biggest tools you have as a landlord is silence. You don't have to engage at all unless it is necessary to correct. Like we're talking about a mischievous, misbehaving tenant, or just acting, saving a real estate deal. But sometimes I'll get random emails from people saying, "Hey, this, that, and the other happened. Is it okay if I pay my rent on the 10th?" Well, the answer is no. It isn't okay. So what I will typically do is I will just stay silent. I'll note that they're not going to pay their rent until the 10th because they've already said that. I'm not going to engage. I'm simply going to know they're not going to pay on the 1st. They're going to get the rent reminder. They're going to get their late fee on top of it. And then depending on what they do, they might, silence is a big tool for me. Because my lease is so extensive, and that's kind of the system that I lean on, going, you know what, if you don't pay your rent on time, you know what's going to happen. It's already in your lease. You're like, it's not a secret. So why are you emailing me for permission? Because I'm not going to say yes. In fact, I'm not going to say anything at all. So that's one of the things that I always ask is, does this thing have to be done at all? Most of the time, the answer is yes, it has to be done. But does it have to be done by you? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe somebody else can do it. So, well, I was having a huge bout of anxiety the other day, and I mean mega, like hyperventilating, upset about this real estate deal that might be going sideways. And Mike and I have been working on this for months. And I just said, you know what? I've got to figure out a way that I can calm down. And I'm thinking, if I'm figuring this out and I'm creating a strategy, then why am I not I not putting this on the podcast? This is exactly why I created the podcast, is so that people can learn and see what we do as real humans. And so that's exactly what this episode was all about. So we went through what anxiety feels like. At least for me, it might feel different for you. Potential solutions to get out of that anxiety, potential solutions to solve whatever is creating the anxiety. So acting or not acting, and then linking those solutions back to today. Like, how do you actually act to actually, what do you actually do? Now, I'm an overthinker, which is a blessing and a curse. The next time you find yourself having anxiety because you are a landlord or a business owner or a parent, I hope these techniques that I use often will help you in some way, or feel free to spin them off. Just get a solution that works for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe for more expert advice and real stories from across the rental property world. Today, I'm recording this episode in Henry Bay off Vancouver Island, British Columbia, on our boat called No Regrets. Why? Because real estate takes you places. Where do you want real estate to take you? Join me next week for episode 175, where Dan Dybel and Karen Hall and I play Rental Roundtable Toastmasters style part 4. I'll see you there.